Good morning, FSACCI members, friends, and people of our broader business community, and welcome to another edition of FSACCI's webinar series related to COVID-19. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you here today for our second webinar this week, actually. Today we're going to be discussing going back to work and what that means in terms of safety and compliance for your employees and for our communities at large in general. So today is really a practical session, and of course I don't think Bureau Veritas needs any introduction, but joining us here today is the marketing manager Cedric Serre, who is also a board director of the French South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So it's a real privilege to have you and your expertise here today, and really helping us, particularly with level 3. More and more of us are going back to work, but also looking forward. I think we're going to be navigating completely new workspaces. So Cedric is here today to give us really a practical look at navigating this health, safety, and our environment. So we're going to have today's session is, like I said, quite practical. So please do, we encourage you as always to be interactive, but even more so today, it's really an opportunity to ask the questions and to really work through the problems that we're facing at the moment and how we can make our workspaces safer and obviously more compliant in that respect. So Cedric will provide a very brief presentation, but like I said, if you have any questions during the presentation, please do raise your hand and we will unmute you. Alternatively, if you're feeling a little bit shy this morning, you can wait until the end for a Q&A session where you can ask your questions either in the Q&A box located below, or again, you can raise your hand and we can engage in a more constructive dialogue between the three of us. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to you, Cedric. Thanks once again for joining us here today, and I'll allow you to do a bit of a more formal introduction.
Good morning. Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. So it's a great opportunity for me also to come and discuss. So like Amy was saying, the idea of this presentation is really to get some elements for major discussions so that we can share our ideas or issues. So quickly, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Cedric, and I've been working for Bureau Veritas for the last 17 years. Bureau Veritas is a recognized world leader in testing, inspection, and certification services, and since 1828. So the objectives of today's quick discussion is, again, to go back into what happened in the last few months with the COVID-19, what happens, what we need to look at for the post-lockdown and resumption of activity. The major point will be the recovery plan, how we are going to prepare ourselves to restart the business. And last is, on the long run, what needs to be done. What happened with the pandemic is something that was really disruptive. Most of us, even globally, but even us in South Africa, were stuck at home and we had to rethink how to work. Most of us had even had to close our businesses, or offices, factories, and now it's time to restart. So just quickly as a warning is that all the discussions that we're having on the COVID-19, the information is always evolving, okay? So even what we're discussing in this module, there's some scientific knowledge that will be changing, okay? So let's keep this in mind that no one knows everything yet about the COVID-19, and this is something we need to keep in mind when we are planning and restarting our business. So I just wanted to remind ourselves with what was the new, so the coronavirus and what we call it, the COVID-19. So the official name is the SARS-CoV-2, which is a new coronavirus, which has an impact on our health, okay, and that is easily transmissible. So it is a pathogen, and we have no vaccines yet. So we need to look at different options to make sure that we stay safe from that pathogen. What happened globally and in South Africa is that the government implemented lockdown. as a public health response, because this was the best way forward to reduce the peak of the cases. Okay, so that's the objective of a lockdown. So what happened is that if we reduce the number of people communicating and interacting, we reduce the number of deaths in the population. It limits the circulation of the virus. And again, it's not something that is intended to be forever. So what is happening is that a lockdown, like we saw in South Africa, it was even divided in 5 levels, is to mainly, it's to keep the essential elements of the organization of the business, of the social, so that less people are interacting. Okay, so it was in a way easy to implement the lockdown. Now we see already that we need to implement the restarts, which is not as easy as we think. So what we have now understood, all of us, is that we need to have prevention and protection. So we can already look at 3 principles. So the first one is that it's about prevention, is not to contaminate the environment. And what we have understood also with the COVID-19 is that you can be asymptomatic, meaning that you don't show any symptoms, but you can still spray the virus. Okay, so we need to protect, and the best way is to protect via the nose and the mouth to avoid any contamination. The other one is also the protection, okay, not to be contaminated by the environment. So that's what we're talking about, staying away from the other people, leaving space between the individuals when you are physically in contact, avoid also touching your face, and most important, washing your hands regularly. And you've all heard about the different approach, also singing the happy birthday to make sure that your hands are clearly washed. Okay, we've been hearing this for the last 2.5 months. But those are the different barrier measures that have been communicated by the government. Okay, and it's really important to continue having those principles. Other examples of things that you may have already put in place, and you may have some other measures in place, and please share with us. Like we said, it's interactive. It's also so that we know what we can do, create ideas of what can be done in different offices. So what you can do is creating a traffic direction so that people don't have to be in contact or bump into each other. In meeting rooms, okay, you can remove some of the seats so that you make sure that there is enough space, 1.5 meters between the individuals. Teams meetings is still a good approach, and let's keep in mind that we are still in lockdown, and we try as much as possible to stay at home. This is also some other examples of what can be done in your factories or in your offices, delimiting the work areas, even in the toilets, making sure that you leave space between the individuals. Okay, so now on the post-lockdown, it's where we see that it's a little bit more tricky about the resumption of activity after the epidemic peak. Okay, I understand that we're not sure that in South Africa we have already reached the epidemic peak, but again, this is we are trying to be proactive, and in your offices, in your environment, you're going to try as much as possible to be prepared. So this is a health, safety, environment usual approach about the principles of prevention. If you are already in the quality environment, you are familiar with this one. If you're not, this is where we want to bring you some ideas, okay, about how you want to avoid the risk, okay, how you're going to adapt of this disruptive environment, take into account the technical developments, take into account also the collective and the government, the regulations, okay, which have changed, which are going to change again, which are changing regularly, and sometimes it's not easy to understand everything, all the rules, okay. And most important is also to do the planning prevention, okay. So this is the different points. So now, if we go into the heart of what we wanted to discuss today, is about the restart. And I think the main reason of this discussion is that if the unprepared will be guaranteed failure. Okay, so I don't know if some of you, if you want to put your hands up, if you're familiar with that PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act, project management. So unfortunately, I don't know if I would see the hands going up.
No hands as yet, Cedric.
Okay. Okay. So the Plan, Do, Check, Act is a principle that you must have already heard, or that's something that you can hear regularly, even when you are in a project. And we use it also for the health, safety, and environment programs. So this is something general, and you can see that you can add this one for our situation of restarting your business. Okay, so I think the core of this discussion is to look at those 5 steps that you need to keep in mind, to write down, so that you are confident in restarting your business. So first is, of course, to define the target and the schedule. Okay, answer the question of the what, how, and the when are you going to do. So for the schedule, some of it is already defined by the government, deciding if we can or not, with the different levels, if we can start or not. Even if we are allowed to start, we see that there's still some question marks. So it's important to keep this question for you open and to review it regularly. Okay. The second one is to define the general operating organization. To define also step 3, the standards, okay, that's going to be new for your zone or activity. The step 4 is to formalize and communicate, and I'm really emphasizing on the word communication, with your team, with your personnel. And the last one is to check that everything that you have implemented is correctly understood, implemented, and that is and that it's working. So if we go again, like I said, we're not going to be. I don't want to go too much into the details, not to get boring, but I hope I'm creating some questions and comments from you. So the first one, like we said, so is to go into the defining the objective and the scheduling. So the prerequisites, okay, before restarting, is to make sure that your premises are ready to get to, to meet your clients or your employees. So it's to the disinfections. You have seen already a lot of advertising. You have seen, so there's definitely people ready to offer this kind of services. Okay, especially if you have had some cases of COVID-19 in your company. The other point also is to make sure that you materialize the barrier measures before the arrival of staff. Okay, it's before that people are coming in that you have to have everything ready. You have to make sure that also the condition of the equipment, the process, the installation, that everything, that how you used to work is meeting the new requirements, the new, I would say, the new normal. Okay, and something that we should never forget is that even if your machine has been stopped for 2 months, is it ready to restart instantly? Maybe you need to go through a checklist to make sure that everything has not been degraded or you have not been had intruders on your site. Okay, so some examples of things that needs to be reviewed, checked, is that hot water circuit stop Okay, if there's no problem with the Legionella. Also on the construction site, make sure that the scaffolding are still meeting the safety requirements, the electrical installation, your stock of masks. Okay, is everything still meeting the requirements? Okay, because you know in your field of activity that stopping, it's almost easy to do it, but restarting is not always as simple. Okay, so this is the objective, and of course is to define when do you want to, when can you restart, okay, and when you want to be ready to have your employees and also to have your clients. Something that we have seen also is that there's been some trainings, online trainings, so that you can prepare your employees even before they come on your premises. I mean, like this, to have Zoom or Teams meetings to make sure that they understand that when they're going to be back in the office, there will be some changes. And those changes is for the best of everyone. Step 2, okay? Like we were saying, disruption means that we need also to review the general organization, okay? Because the access to your premises needs to be reviewed. It's not as maybe you used to have a system where people were having their fingers checked, or with the cars, or you didn't have, everyone was coming through the same door. You see, so the access conditions for your staff needs to be reviewed, okay, even including the temperature controls. The transport, okay, needs also to be checked with your team. Is your team taking mainly public transport, or they're coming with individual vehicle? Because you see, especially in South Africa, it's going to be a different risk on this point. I was talking already about the staff entry and exit flows, maybe to review the timetable so that not everyone is coming at the same time, and you see, create distances in the office itself. Ritualize the hand washing, okay? Really make sure that everyone is familiar with their hand washing. Also in your organization, make sure that the COVID standards are well applied and that it's visible for your teams, that all the PPE, okay, the personal protective equipment is available, understood also, and that your team understand how to use it, okay, especially if it was not something normal for your team pre-pandemic, okay. And also something that we must not forget is about the meals, how you will be taking the meals, if you have a canteen, a cafeteria, okay. So all those points needs to be looked at. You need to write it down and see, okay, do I meet those new requirements? Do I make sure that I've understood all the risk? You see, all this discussion is about risk analysis, okay? Risk mitigation. Again, when we're talking about risk, you will never be at zero risk level, okay? But you can try to push to that, to reach that level, okay? Next step, as I'm sure you are all looking forward, is the step 3, which is to define the specific standards. Are you all already familiar with standards? Can someone want to say what is a standard? No.
No takers yet, Cedric. I think everyone is enjoying your voice.
Okay, all right. In fact, Amy, we forgot to say that at the end of this discussion, there was a quiz.
Yes, I purposely did that. It's a great way to incentivize.
Okay, so what we mean right now is that, and you've seen, is that most of you have already implemented some standards in your companies or in your offices. You're familiar with the ISO 9001, and depending of your business, you have different other standards that you're following. What it means is that with this restarting this situation that we are facing now, is that we need to also look at new documents, new regulations, new rules, okay, which will impact your logistics, your maintenance, even when you have people on the field, okay, other commercial team, drivers, in your offices, how you're going to handle your meetings, how you're going to handle your collective spaces, how you're going to handle also your supplies. So you see all this which was working smoothly already in your companies, which was a non-topic, today, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's an opportunity for you to look at all those processes, all those standards that you're following, which one do you need to adapt, which maybe you were already in fact following standards which were higher than what are the actual requirements, okay? But this is all the questions that we need to ask ourselves in our companies right now, from the QHSE, so quality, health, safety, and environment approach, but also as the manager, as a director, okay? To make sure that we mitigate the risk, okay? So the step 4, okay? So why do we want to take all those, well, avoid all those risks and make sure that we implement all this is to recreate the trust, to entrust your team and your clients, okay? To make sure that people are confident that they can come back to work in your premises and that they can also come and buy your products. You may have heard of cases of, you may know people who had cases of COVID-19, and some offices, some factories, the reaction was not ideal. There can be also a lot of people can be afraid of this because, like I was saying in the introduction, we are not completely sure of what are the impacts of the COVID-19, of this pathogen, and we are not. We know that we do not have any vaccine, and we know that it's still a lethal pathogen. So the step 4 is really important, is to formalize and to communicate. Okay, so as I was saying, is to raise awareness in training your staff about the barrier gesture, about your new COVID company standards. And this is something that you can do internally, or you can even use an external company to do this training, okay, to demonstrate that you take this seriously for the safety of your team, of your staff, and of your clients. Explain also, it's the reassurance that, okay, what you are putting in place, and you explain what you are doing by also, as I was saying, is to demonstrate what you are putting in place, to demonstrate by putting posters, by explaining why we have put the desk with 1.5 meters apart, okay? And what we see globally is that every time you have a disruptive situation like this, is also to remind daily what you are doing, okay? Awareness and information is a key, and this is something is easy to implement, but it's important to talk about it, is that awareness and information will help you avoid any fear and make sure that your team understand that if we work together, okay, if you work together, it will be a great success in restarting your business. The last one, of course, is to check and audit what you have planned to do, okay? And the best way is to create a checklist, okay? A checklist. So if you're not familiar with this one, you can even talk with some specialists, okay? You can, to make sure that you have your checklist. The best way also is to have a third party or someone outside from that specific team to be auditing, to make sure that everything that you wanted to put in place has been done, and you're going to verify. Okay, so if you're in your standards, in your COVID-19 company standard, you said that the toilets, I mean, should be in your meeting rooms, should be closed and only be used with 3 persons, you need to make sure that that's how it's been understood, and that you will not be four in your meeting room. Okay, so this daily control, we're talking about daily at the beginning because, like I always say, it's something that is new, so we need to remind the people. It's something that should not be overlooked or underestimated. Okay, because you want to make sure, okay, once you tick the boxes, that you comply with the standards, your standards, the government standards, your business standards. Okay. What is important with an audit is also to detect and anticipate the problems. Okay, an auditor is not here to just do the police, but it's also to be proactive and try to make sure that you're going to find the problems before they occur. Okay, check the adequacy of your instructions. Okay, and this is also one point that is important because, and again, it's not something that we are so, we were not familiar with the COVID-19, so we can have instructions that can be difficult to understand, or that is not, I mean, even on the common sense, there's no logic. And even with the government, you could see this is what happens, is that we have some instructions, but if you look, you think, but what is the logic behind? It's because, unfortunately, at the time one, it was a logical approach, but now at time two, it's worth to look and check and readjust the instructions. Something that was true yesterday may not be true tomorrow. Okay, and keep the history of the means that you have put in place. Okay, maybe this is also me coming from an auditor background, but keep track. Okay, always keep documentation so that you can demonstrate that you have done something. Okay, just to say, yes, we thought about it and this is what we did. No, we need to have a document to show and demonstrate that we have done it. Okay, still no questions? But still clear enough? Or is everyone sleeping?
I think we're good. We're going to have a Q&A session following this, I think, Cedric.
All right, okay. All right, so the last point I wanted to check with you now was about in the long run. Okay, so I was already giving you a bit of a hint about documents, organizations, and the means. So the key words are a business continuity plan. And most of you must have heard this before. I mean, it's not only related to what's happening now, but you have now the 5 steps to think of your restarting plan, okay, or review what you have already planned. But also you will have to have a business continuity plan. Great news is that even this work will not only be for what's happening today. If you do it properly, it's a tool, it's a plan that you will be able to use for forever. Okay, so your business continuity plan will organize the operations of your company. So for what's happening right now, okay, for the COVID-19 situation, because again, we don't know how long it will be in circulation. Okay, and great news is that it will also be a nice approach for you for any other potential pandemic viruses. And let's touch wood, we hope it's not going to be something that is going to reoccur too often. Also, with you having a business continuity plan, it's something that you can start to prepare for other disruptive situations, like a flooding of your premises, a computer virus. Okay, so think of other cases that could happen. Okay. Let's keep in mind that unfortunately, there's a very probable context of global economic recession that will impact South Africa. Okay, but even globally, with what happened with the lockdown, okay, it was almost a global lockdown for the last few months. Most of the countries like South Africa, we are still in lockdown. Some are slowly reopening. Okay, and if you're familiar on the HSE, what we were discussing since the beginning or not, is to start to prepare to have documentation about restarting plan, risk evaluation plan, and like I was saying about the business continuity plan. Okay, so the idea about this discussion this morning with the chamber and for you as member was to share so that we have another approach of what's happening right now, not only on the commercial, but also let's keep in mind the HSE, okay, which is a key element of your restarting your business safely today. I hope I was clear enough. If you have any questions, let's start it. Amy?
Perfect. Thank you. Let me just switch on my video. Thank you very much, Cedric. I think, just show him. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you very much, Cedric. Yeah, and I think this topic is something that, of course, we have various departments in our company that usually deal with these types of things. And I think now there's a greater emphasis and responsibility, I think, on the part of the individual, whether it's the employee or the manager, and also in terms of accountability. I see we have quite a few companies here from different backgrounds. I see we have FMB, we also have Gibbs who's around. So welcome to all of you. I think it will also be quite interesting to sort of just have a discussion as well about how things have changed in your workplace, or if you are in that managerial position, what are the kind of things you have done? And I think it's something new that we're navigating. So we have the expertise of Cedric here who can answer your questions, but also it'll be interesting to sort of compare notes on what our various organizations are doing. We do have a couple of questions that have already come through. No hands as yes. I think everyone's a little bit shy, but please don't be afraid. You're welcome to share your hand and we'll unmute you and you can participate with us in the discussion. Otherwise, I think you're going to be listening to Cedric and I. But we do have a few questions coming through, so you can ask them on the Q&A box located below, or just raise your hand. So we have a first question for you, Cedric, which is on sort of on innovation. So we, of course, Bureau Veritas is an institution across the world in this department, but within the South African context, have you witnessed with this sort of change any new innovations or really smart ways that companies or corporates have been implementing these new rules and introducing these sort of safety and compliance protocols?
Yes, so I'll take the example of Bureau Veritas. So even during the lockdown, and to make sure to keep the safety and to meet the requirements and the regulations, we have really pushed also what we call the remote inspection, meaning that and remote audits. What used to be that we had an inspector and auditor going on the field, we have managed to offer the service so that we can still be with our clients without having our teams on the field. So how it works is that you can have an inspection of your goods, or you can have an audit, or like I was saying, you can have a training via your smartphone or your computer. That's the inspector will be able to check the goods with you showing with your smartphone the products, okay, take the picture. So definitely, when you have a disruptive situation, you need to adapt and innovate. So this is what we have seen. That's what Bureau Veritas have put in place. And that's what we have seen in some of the other companies. What I can give you also another example of one of your members, AGS also, who is offering this kind of services, meaning that they don't come to your house to give you a quote, but you do it also online. So I think that it's important that people can look at think outside the box and look at how we can adapt and still deliver the right service to our clients.
Thanks, Cedric. And I believe Evan from AGS is here. So Evan, if you would like to jump in at any point, you're welcome to let us know what AGS has been up to, maybe a little bit in more detail. So we also have another question, Cedric, and this is regards to, of course, we know Bureau Veritas works worldwide, but particularly within Africa as well. How have other African countries adapted? Because I think quite a few of our members work both within South Africa and within the African context, and sort of what are the differences that you've noticed there?
So in fact, it's quite a global approach, because even when we're talking in Africa, a lot of countries are starting to reopen. So it's either talking in levels like in South Africa or just saying almost on off. But we're still all in really in this approach of restarting the economy, restarting the business. And this is how we are accompanying all our clients in all the different countries.
And then just like a very practical question, Cedric, if for those who don't have big corporates and specific departments that deal with this type of thing, if I'm an SME and I'm a manager, what's the starting point for me to really creating this toolkit for compliance? Because I need to open up my office, for example, next week I need to ensure cleaning. Where's the best place to find these sort of resources and start that, particularly as a small company?
So I will answer you with there's two options. So the first one is that we're lucky here in South Africa that the government bodies and the private sectors have launched a website, and I'm sure that you have already shared with our members, or it will be shared after this discussion. It's and of course, just now I don't see the name, but there's, and also to answer to Damien's question, is that there's some guidelines that have been created, and the chamber will share those ones also. The other option is, like I was saying, is to use a third-party company or consultant to help you with creating those documents. To create those documents. So it's either to help you to create the documents at the beginning, or if you prefer that you do all this preparation and you have an external person who's going to come and check on your behalf that everything is in place.
And we have a question from Damien, which sort of leads on from the following one. Is there a specific guideline or gazette from government for companies to reopen and accommodate all employees? Is it a specific document that we can use as a resource, or is the information more distributed?
No. So there's, like I was saying, so there's that website that we are going to share on the chamber's website. Unfortunately, if I change it now, it will have. I'm afraid to lose what I have.
We'll be sure to send it following this, I think. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to share this one because there's definitely a nice website that was created in South Africa. I see also the other question. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, we have a question from Andiswa. Welcome, Andiswa, from FNB. Always great to have you here. We have two questions from Andisa. And first of all, she would like to know if you think corporates will ever need the same amount of real estate, given how effective remote working has been for some. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, so now I think one of the impact, if we try to also look at the restarting your business and how business will not be as usual, okay, and that's my my approach, because we see that working from anywhere works. Okay, and again, this is not something not new from that pandemic. It's just that this disruptive pandemic helped some of the companies which were reluctant to the change, were pushed to test new tools, new toys, new ways of thinking, new ways of working. So we've seen, okay, most of the companies. Some of the companies managed to work even when we were in level 5 lockdown, and we discovered that it works. Okay, is it the best way to work like we're doing now, meetings? Maybe not, because I think it will still be good to have this human contact. But globally, I think that yes, we don't need to have everyone in the office all the time, and we see that if we have meetings when we need the people, then you will have people in the offices. So yes, real estate, there will be a change. Definitely, there should be a change, and the companies who are not planning, even in their business continuity, these changes, they will have some difficulties.
And I think Andiso's second question also leads from that, and she asks, just so that the other participants can hear, how do you think companies can maintain a good culture in a new reality where colleagues may not spend as much face time together as previously, in particular the future of recruitment or new joiners who typically benefit from having colleagues to learn from? So these are some of the questions that Andiso has asked.
So I was reading, it was interesting, and I don't know if it's the case already in South Africa, but I could see in France, in Europe, that even people looking for new jobs, it's one of their requirements is to be able to work from anywhere. Mm. So definitely there's something that we need to look into it. But to answer your question is that, and even in my position, so I've been in charge of all sub-Saharan, all of Africa. So it means that I was not seeing every day all my team. So it's easy maybe to work like we're doing right now with you and me, not being face-to-face because we already know each other. So if you already know the person, it's easy. Okay, and I always say if you can hear the voice of the person when you read the email or like this and you can understand each other, it's easier to communicate and to work like that. If you don't know the people, it's a little bit more tricky. It means that we'll have to learn. And in your question, it's really important, and I think this is something that we need to keep in mind, is that about the training. In any companies, and I know Bureau Veritas being quite an old company, we have some habits, we have some non-spoken rules, okay? And this is something that will be difficult to give to your new recruitments. Well, we have to hope, of course, that we're not going to be stuck in lockdown forever, okay? Otherwise, life is going to be really difficult. But what it means is that we'll have to rethink, and maybe more on the HR side, of times where you can work away from each other and times where you need to be together. Thank you, Damien, for that. I see that Damien put the website. It was returntowork.co.za.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, because in fact, when we were talking about it, I was thinking of restart to your work, which was wrong. So thank you very much, Damien, for sharing. This is why we talk about discussions. Yes.
Exactly. And I think also if anyone has any specific questions, I think when you start creating your checklist or start implementing these types of things, if you do have any specific questions that come up, please do reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with Cedric or the relevant person who will be able to give you the expert advice that you'll need in order to navigate that. But I think you made a very good point, Cedric, particularly like you said, with the older institutionalized ways of thinking and with newcomers and recruitment coming in. I think it's going to create a very disruptive space, which I suppose we'll need to navigate, but also could be quite rejuvenating in some senses. And just speaking of that as well, I was wondering, with these news coming into place and speaking of compliance and all these things we need to do to restart, what do you think the implications of this are going to be on jobs? Could it in fact actually create new jobs, or do you think it's going to be, we're going to stick to a more virtual, like we've discussed, these new tools of doing compliance virtually, or do you think there's a capacity to create new jobs? I think particularly in South Africa, when the unemployment is already so high and it's going to be increasingly so, maybe there's some hope in that industry to create some new jobs.
I know that when you talk about changes, there's always some fear, okay? And even when you're talking about the job, I'll take again the example of something that I know quite well, is about remote inspection. So when you talk about remote inspection, you would think, oh, but then you don't need any more humans. It's not true. In fact, you still have human. It's just that we are having a virtual interaction. I think it's a quite eye-opening, the fact that quality, health, safety in our environment is key for us, for our kids, but also in our working environment. And it will create jobs, because I fear that most of the people were not really taking this into consideration. Okay, it was more a box to tick because you have to do it. Okay, I do hope that from what happened with in South Africa is that now we're going to be more quality minded, and this will create jobs, because you will need more people also to control. You will need people also to train and people to audit what's happening.
Yeah, I think so. And then just from your industry perspectives, of course, I know you guys work with a lot of big corporates, big supermarkets. Have you seen a change in, I think you might have alluded to it now, but a change in, for example, if we're dealing with issues of food and safety in that regard, have you seen a shift that companies have had to sort of up their game in this regard, and maybe it's for the better in that respect? Or what are your thoughts on or observations on what's happened there?
Yes, no, we saw this one, and so Bureau Veritas have some labs in South Africa, and we can do also the food testing. And we saw, yes, some influx and some queries also from clients. We have also shared some of the points like we discussed also today, and people are coming back with questions. So definitely there's, everyone understands that there's a need, because if you are not putting it in place, you will not create the trust with your employees and with your customers, your clients. And on the long run, okay, it's something that will have to be put in front. Okay,
perfect. So we have another question that's just come through. I think we'll take, I see, I think, yeah, if anyone has any final questions or comments or would like to share anything, please do so now before we take the last question, which Cedric is one on accountability. Where does the accountability lie? Obviously, there's you mentioned that having the correct documentation is, of course, very important. But where does that accountability lie, both in terms of the employee? A lot of the new precautions are ones are very individual, making sure you have personal hygiene in the office and really you embrace these new rules. But also if something were to go wrong, or one of our colleagues had to fall sick, how do we navigate that? Where does the accountability lie, and what's the best practice in that regard?
So, as I was saying, the risk that you have 0 cases in your office or in your premises, in your factory, is unreachable. Okay, there will always be a risk, and even someone in your office can get sick at home or on the way to your offices, or coming back to the offices. It could be in the office. So the accountability is defined by the regulations. Okay, that's what I would consider also the government regulations, who will say, okay, you as an employer, you're responsible for, and it will give you the list A, B, and C. Okay, so you as a company, if you can demonstrate that you have implemented certain protocols or certain standards to meet those requirements, this is how you will reduce the accountability of your company.
Thanks, Cedric. And then just finally, I think obviously we're not quite sure when we're going to exit the lockdown and for how long COVID-19 is going to be around in our realities in the coming years. But even if we were to find a vaccine, let's hope very soon, and we had to globally clear this pandemic, do you think the sort of the standards and rules that we are implementing now would stay in place despite, for example, if COVID would have to go? Is it completely changed the way we think about these types of things in health and safety and prevention? Or do you think it's something that we bring out of the cupboard whenever there's a time of crisis?
I hope personally that some of those rules will only have to be implemented in the worst case scenario in your business continuity plan. Some of those regulations shows that if we are more quality minded, it can have a positive impact on the environment, and I hope that this will stay. Okay, washing the hands is not only it's good for your own health, I mean, globally, not only for with this pandemic. The fact that we are not going to over consume some of the products. That's you see, if we change a little bit our mentality, thanks to this, some of those rules, I hope that it will help us, and those rules must stay. Now, if even in South Africa, if some of the rules of the lockdown are staying even after, I think some of our South Africans will not be happy.
Yes, but so, I think we share that trait with the French. We're big complainers in that. But no, I do hope so in terms of the industry and safety globally, that I think we're doing the best as we can. And on that regard, I'd like, before we end off, is there any last comments you'd like to give to the audience here today before we end off officially?
If there are some questions or even after, you can go on the Chamber's website or on the Bureau Veritas website. There's some information about how you can be helped to restart your business. Okay. So yeah, don't hesitate also to go and send emails if you have any other questions.
Perfect. I think that did my conclusion. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, really, if you have any business-related questions, not just to COVID-19, but just to your current situations or looking forward, or if you have any you need specific advice on how to open up and return back to work, please do, as Cedric said, reach out to us. And on that note, I'd like to thank you very much, Cedric, for your time and expertise today. It's always great to not only to have a board member present, but of course, one of our platinum members and really one of the biggest players worldwide in this industry. So thank you very much for sharing your time here today. And a big thank you to all the participants who have joined. A little quiet today, but you're forgiven for that because we know we have a very vibrant and active community, and you have definitely kept the FSACCI team busy. So thank you very much. And please do, if you are returning back to it, do keep safe. Please reach out if you need any information at all. We're here to help. And on that note, I'd like to end off. Have a fantastic rest of the week, and thank you very much, Cedric.
Thank you. Stay safe. Bye.